What if I told you the hardest part of being a police officer isn't the danger, it's not the stress or the long hours, but it's something far deeper. And it's driving police officers to leave policing in record numbers, everywhere. Well, stick with me because I'm going to share a truth that most people never hear about policing. And it might surprise you, and it's possible that you can even relate no matter what you do for a living. Now, I've made plenty of videos where I share the realities of policing. I go over some of the negative aspects of shift work and some of the stresses on the job, stress-related illnesses and disease. I've even covered some older stats which showed that as soon as you became a police officer or you entered emergency services in general, you take years off your life. Statistically, that's a fact. But I also provided some coping mechanisms to help officers deal with those things. Things are a lot better than they used to be, and those negative stats, they are changing, which is a good thing, of course. But is there a downside to policing that can't be fixed with proper sleep, with proper eating habits or other coping mechanisms to deal with the stress? Well, yes, there is. Now, of course, I'm going to share it with you, but I also want to add that it's the reason why people are leaving the job, leaving policing all over the world. They're not retiring or moving to another police service. They're actually resigning, leaving policing altogether. And how do I know that this is happening? How can I speak about this? What gives me the right to speak about this with such authority? Well, besides my own career, I'm connected to thousands of police officers all over the world, online, and we talk. But listen, don't just take my word for it. Police services and police associations especially, they've been speaking about the number of officers leaving publicly, as well as the lack of potential candidates and the lack of people applying everywhere. Well, first, we're going to look at some of the more obvious reasons, okay? Like lack of public support, increased hostility towards police, both in person and online. You see it everywhere. Something even worse than that is the lack of support internally from command or from brass, as they call it, but also your fellow officers at times. Morale is at an all-time low. I mentioned in a video recently that shifts get together on a regular basis, shift parties, they're a thing of the past. Permanent partners, they seem to be a thing of the past now. The turnover rate on shifts and other units is incredibly high, which means you're not developing that deep bond, that close relationship, the level of trust that is so important. And it was so important. And that needs to be there. There's always a few that's going to comment now and say that you need to know who you can trust for when you decide to break rules or procedures or even laws, but that's just nonsense, okay? Where I'm going with this is when there's a tense situation, you need to know how your partner or other police officer on the shift are going to act. If you're speaking to somebody who might be in crisis, you want a partner who can read your body language and understand the signals, which might be showing that they have to be ready for another use of force, or would let them know that even though you're talking to a person who's in crisis, everything's under control. So perhaps don't take things to the next level. It's tough for me to explain this in a way that, you would understand especially when the safety of yourself, your partner is on the line or the public without you being there, without you experiencing it. I'm going to tell a story, a personal story to make it more relatable. Okay. I'm a licensed tradesperson. After high school, when I finally turned my life around, and before I became a police officer, I did a 4-year apprenticeship. So framing, drywall, lathing, and acoustics on both the interior and exterior of small and large buildings, everywhere. I lived in Surrey at the time, near Vancouver, so a lot of my work was there. I can go for a walk at any time and see the fruits of my labor. Buildings that I worked on from start to finish, when it was nothing but a field or an empty hole, and now there's a beautiful structure where people live and people go to work. There's a sense of completion and satisfaction that I have when I see these buildings. I can go to some smaller locations that I worked on, coffee shops, winners locations, clothing stores, and I could be proud of what I accomplished. From the Fairmont Hotel in beautiful Vancouver to condos and structures in Toronto on Yonge Street, even things that we built and shipped off to Hawaii. I can look at what I accomplished with pride for years to come. I can show my kids one day. And that sense of satisfaction or that sense of accomplishment, it's seriously missing in policing these days. Of course, there's pride in the job itself and wearing the uniform, as there should be, serving with pride. But that sense of accomplishment, it's very hard to come by, especially these days with what's been called the catch and release revolving door justice system. Police are often dealing with the same people, causing the same problems day after day, year after year. There's a lot of current and former police officers, including myself, who know what it's like to watch an individual's crimes become progressively worse and worse. The person's been through the court system time and time again. People are making excuses for them time and time again until one day that person ends up dead or takes someone else's life. That's an extreme example, I admit that. It can be something simple as witnessing families or children grow up in a broken system with a cycle of abuse, all forms of abuse, and know that there's not much that you can do about it at the moment except maybe pass on a referral, even if you take them somewhere and get them help, or the person's placed under arrest. You finish up your notes and you move on to the next radio call because there's 15, 20 more calls impending, especially again these days, and you have a sergeant breathing down your neck to hurry up and clear and move on to the next call. Internal politics, the overtime, the stresses of the job, being challenged publicly, that stuff can gut you from the inside. But most police officers, they're aware of that before they join. It's a tough job. They know that, and they chose to do it anyways, and they deserve our gratitude. But the lack of accomplishment, the lack of satisfaction and closure, it can really have some long-term effects on your psyche, leading to anger, depression, all kinds of different things. And it's something that we also require as human beings. There's a very relevant quote from Viktor Frankl. He's a renowned neurologist and psychiatrist. He stated, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." Now, this quote speaks to the core of why a lack of accomplishment and fulfillment can weigh heavily on people, including police officers. It stresses how finding meaning and purpose in everything that we do is absolutely essential for our mental and emotional well-being. So we reach this part in the video again where I have to ask myself, what's the point of this video? To try to discourage people from joining? To depress cops who already know what I'm talking about and make them want to leave? No, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I still think it's the greatest career out there. It's a calling. It's a calling for those who accept challenges head on, no matter what the cost. They serve with pride. But have a life and have some hobbies outside of your career. Further your education. Learn how to build things, collect things. I collect Star Wars memorabilia. I know a guy who went to school part-time and learned how to become an auctioneer. I mean, how cool is that? Find a way to get fulfillment on the inside that you might not get from your career. And this goes for everybody out there. If you find this information helpful at all, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. It helps me know that at least I'm on the right track with something in my life. If you want to add a comment, please feel free to do so. Add your thoughts. I've mentioned in the past, I read every single comment personally and I respond when it's appropriate to do so. So thank you for watching. Be safe out there. Look after one another, and I'll see you in the next video.